Hey guys, it's me, Lauren, or the Dadvocate from TikTok. I said that I wanted to get into a little bit longer content, like 3 minutes is just not enough to respond to and to cover some of the topics that I want to talk about. So, like I said I was going to do, I am here on YouTube. I have obviously created some type of semi-decent to digest structure here. I've got my ring light, I've got my potato camera. What more could you need? So we are going to jump into it. I've got something very fun to share with you today. I have found this delightful article that is directed toward people like me, mothers. It is from the Mothers Movement Online, and they would like to warn us of the dangers of the fathers' rights movement. So let's jump into that and see what they have to say, because we got to be careful out here in this world where fathers are daring to want to be involved in their kids' lives and committing such atrocious sins as wanting shared custody and visitation. I'm sure they have a lot of great points. So, found this article. Like I said, the Mothers Movement Online, resources and reporting for mothers and others who think about social change. Now, this is important. Fathers don't think about social change. It's impossible. A father thinking about social change couldn't be him. What every mother should know about the fathers' rights movement. I grew up as a child of divorce, straddled between two households. Out of every 14 days, I spent 5 with my dad, 9 with my mom, or 36% of time with my dad, 64 with my mom. Numbers notwithstanding, the tangible symbol of my divided life was a small flowered suitcase. Mine became quite worn over time. For me, living in 2 houses was what it was: sad, cumbersome, better than any of the alternatives, by which I mean better than not having authentic access to both parents, and better than their staying together. So this is actually something that I do hear a lot from kids who basically lived through a split family home and had to kind of go back and forth between homes, as a lot of them kind of complain about living in a luggage or always living in a bag. It's unfortunate that that is the circumstance for a lot of these kids. That hasn't been our experience as a biological and a stepmom. There's like his school bag, I guess, but every kid has a school bag. I get the idea that you can't always bring the same items between 2 houses. You can't bring your pets between both houses. I mean, you also can't bring all of your favorite stuff or all of your pets to your friends' houses or your grandparents' house or your aunt's house. Like, I feel like that part is usually a pretty digestible part of just life for most kids. And also, another really important thing this author recognizes herself very early on is that divorce just sucks. There really are no better alternatives than going back between your mom and dad, because, like she said, it would be worse if they stayed together in most of these cases. So we'll see how she gets into it here, even though she has already acknowledged that, again, this is like the best case scenario for her. We'll keep going. Time and time again, as friends go through divorces, I feel grateful to my own parents. However arduous the process their split was, and it was, they tried to do what was best for my sister and me. Money, our time with one another, or the other parent was never ammunition. We were never pawns of their anger or disappointment. They were divorcing, we weren't at war. I feel like it's going to be important to remember that this author came from a very non-contentious divorced family. And so they're really speaking from a place of privilege. Like, they don't know what it's like for those things to be used as a weapon. You're going to see soon how this becomes one of those scenarios where it's because it didn't happen to me, it couldn't happen to anyone else. Depending on how your divorce goes, you may end up being at war. That much all sides can agree upon. A follow-up question is this one: whose rights matter most? That's currently up for debate. No, it's not. The child's rights. The easiest question in the world. No one's debating that part, actually. Oh, wait. Except for you. Because This is also one of those things that people confuse, is people confuse the father's rights movement being fathers take all the custody, moms pay them child support, fathers own the child. Dude, no, that's the same as saying like Black Lives Matter means only Black Lives Matter. That's never what anyone was saying. The whole point of the father's rights movement is actually really saying dads matter too, not only dads matter or moms don't matter, and yet so many people see it that way. Legal priorities aren't necessarily set in stone, and many argue that by trying to change the standards, the father's rights movement is actually attempting to put a parent's right, the father's, above a child's. In England, Fathers for Justice employ guerrilla theater tactics to get their point across. The group recently profiled in a New York Times Magazine piece by Susan Dominus, The Father's Crusade of 2005, is known for its dramatic actions. On the group's behalf last year, former house painter Jason Hatch scaled Buckingham Palace dressed as Batman. From there, he unfurled a banner, Bruce Banner, in support of fathers' rights, and spent more than 5 hours perched on the ledge near the palace balcony. Although arrested once the stunt was over, Hatch was released without ever being charged with a crime. He even got his ladder back. Before the Buckingham Palace protest, Prince Charles was quoted in London's Daily Telegraph in support of fathers' rights. He said he felt judges favor mums when deciding custody of the kids, even when many fathers were not to blame for the split. They're so mad about this silly antic, as if like women who are advocating for their rights didn't just march across Washington wearing pink vagina hats. Like, it's so unheard of to think that a man would dress up as a superhero and hold a banner. Like, that sounds like an awesome way to get the word out about anything. But especially this, because of course Batman cares about fathers' rights. Lord knows if he could have his dad in his life, he would. Jamil Jabir, head of Fathers for Justice, has recently begun a United States branch called Fathers for Justice US. In a reconnaissance trip to New York, members of the organization scouted for sites for an action. While in the city, they were trailed by the head of New York's Terrorism Intelligence Branch. Dads are terrorists now? Fathers wanting rights is terrorism? Says Jabir he had FBI connections and orders to make sure that there would be no Buckingham Palace type incidents. Although it is dubious whether such outrageous guerrilla theater tactics would prevail in post 9/11 New York, it has been widely reported that the fathers' rights radicals went out for a beer with the men assigned to watch them. She is so mad that the police don't actually give a Like, she is so pissed that they let Batman go. She is so pissed that these guys who simply are forming a group to talk about fathers' rights, who simply might do something silly, are having beer with officers of the law. She's so mad about this. Meanwhile, others like Ned Holstein, founder of the Boston-based organization Fathers and Families, use more conventional means to push the fathers' rights agenda along. The fathers' agenda. With downtown Boston offices, a membership base of about 2,000, and an annual budget of $130,000, his group focuses on lobbying. He was one organization that helped get family law initiatives on the Massachusetts ballot this past November. Massachusetts voters weighed in on the custody issue by answering non-binding referendum questions in 100 communities across the state. Voters asked if they would endorse a law requiring judges to presume shared physical and legal custody of all minor children in all divorce cases unless a parent is proven unfit or unable to care for the child, offer resounding approval for the suggested measure. 85%. I just want everyone to recognize that I have found in a Mother's Movement article evidence that shows that 85% of 100 different communities thought that presumed shared custody for all minor children, abuse and neglect aside, was a good idea. This woman is now going to write like 5 more pages on how all 85% of these people are wrong. Massachusetts isn't the only place where such lobbying is taking place. The Indiana chapter of the Children's Rights Council, in parentheses, a father's rights group, because they have to let you know that it's not actually for children's rights, even though it may be ran by fathers, and that immediately means, oh, nope, remember what we said at the beginning? Fathers cannot care about children. There is no way that a children's rights council could possibly be run by fathers. The Children's Rights Council urged that class action suits be filed nationwide to call for a presumption of joint physical custody. Iowa Governor Tom Vilsack signed a presumptive joint custody law in May of 2004. Although New Mexico's custody laws determine joint or sole custody according to the best interests of the child, they plainly state this bias. There is a presumption that joint custody is in the best interest of the child unless shown otherwise. I'm sorry, where is the bias in that statement? How is it biased either way to say that both parents should retain custody? Are children biased for wanting both parents? Do children hate their mothers because they love their dads? In all, 11 states and the District of Columbia have a legal presumption in favor of joint custody. Only 3 states make this presumption even when the parents contest the arrangement. 8 states apply such a presumption only when both parents are in agreement. She is so mad at all 11 of these states, which is such a small number of the entire US, for enough people to sit down and say, maybe it would be best for the child if both parents were involved. And you can tell that she's really mad about those only 8 states still assume presumed joint, even when someone's mad about it. These moms legitimately think that because they're moms and they're mad, that should just be enough to be like, okay, she gets sole custody because we don't want her to be mad. These women have lived their whole lives having people fear their reactions anytime they get mad, that this is what they just assume happens. And yet fathers are the biased ones. Some conservative women are weighing in to support fathers' rights too. This is another weird idea that only conservative women support fathers' rights. Literally some of the best co-parents that I know, who are the most reasonable when working with their exes, who include them on all things medical, who let them see the kids even outside of their schedule. Super liberal. I'm talking rainbow flags on the front yard. This is not a conservative-only issue. And this is how they try to pigeonhole and narrative shift the fathers' rights movement, is they try to make it look like this scary thing that only conservatives would attach themselves to. Dude, everyone wants dads to be involved, not just the conservative people. Wendy McElroy, a columnist for Fox News, believes in fathers' rights wholesale. She bought it hook, line, and sinker, folks. What a goofball. Not only does she support shared custody, I'm sorry, but she keeps writing about shared custody as if it's supporting the purge. She keeps writing about people who would dare support 2 people having custody of the child they made together as tinfoil hats. She recently wrote an article about a birth father's right to his biological child with an ex-girlfriend he hadn't known was pregnant in the first place. Is she trying to put blame on him for not knowing she was pregnant? You should know, as a woman who I'm sure several times in your life has said, my body, my choice, you should know that he has no way to pregnancy test her. How is he going to know that she's pregnant unless she tells him? What? So he's a bad dad because he didn't telepathically know she was pregnant? I'm going to scream, but I am going to make it through this video. This is why TikTok is easier. The organization wants the state to take a brand new tack, one that utterly discounts and discredits the old women good, men bad model, and forthrightly recognizes instead that domestic violence is a shared problem between men and women. Yeah! Okay, so yes, women are battered more often. For women, I believe the number is close to 3 in 5 or 4 in 5 women will face assault in their lives. That's horrible. And trust me, I know. Happened to me. But also, roughly 2 in 5 to 3 in 5 men also experience assaults. So why are there no shelters for men? Why is it such an outrageous idea to think that men should have somewhere safe to go to, or that men's abuse should also be recognized? This is such a harmful fucking article. Did the top of this page not say that this is for mothers seeking social change? Men's abuse being acknowledged, and not only acknowledged but treated as very seriously, is a major social issue. Oh wait, I forgot, it's not happening to a woman, so who cares? Mental health matters until it's the men's turn, right? These groups attempt to level a playing field they believe is skewed against some men by widening that description to suggest actual discrimination against all men. Yes, because when there is active discrimination against some men for being men, it does affect all men. You know that whole intersectional feminism thing? It includes men. It includes men. They don't want to hear that. In a 2000 article for Salon, author Kathy Young chronicles the way Diana Thompson became executive director of the American Coalition for Fathers and Children. Thompson was galvanized into activism in 1992 whenever a woman joins a movement or a group that another woman disagrees with, she jumps straight into infantilizing the fuck out of her. She will literally base her whole reason that she joined that group off of, oh, she was tricked, or oh, she's so silly and naive. She just fell into it blind. She was galvanized. This language, she couldn't just recognize that there was a real issue happening and care about it outside of her own ovaries. As a result of an overhaul of California's child support laws, her husband's support payments for 2 children from his first marriage were tripled. Thompson, a mother of 5, says that as a result of this increase, her family was faced with losing their home. In both of these scenarios, the biological father so distanced from the pregnant mother that he wasn't aware of the pregnancy, and the man charged higher support payments. Men are presented as innocent victims. So you're saying that because he didn't know that she was pregnant, which I cannot stress enough scientifically how impossible it is for any man to ever know that any woman is pregnant without her sharing that with him. I cannot stress enough how impossible that is. Because he didn't know she was pregnant through telepathy, through mind reading, through magic, he deserves to have his child support payments tripled. These are the same women who don't believe that women should ever pay child support. These are the same women who don't believe that women should pay alimony. These are the same women who would bricks and cry themselves to sleep every night if they were so much as ordered $80 a month. And yes, the man is an innocent victim of you blaming him for not knowing that his girlfriend's pregnant, that his ex-girlfriend is pregnant. I don't talk to my exes unless they're calling me and telling me something's going on. Why would I know that it's happening? Like the conservative feminists, the vast majority of fathers' rights activists cite personal roots for their dedication to the cause. Jason Hatch got into the fathers' rights movement 3.5 years ago after his second wife left him, taking their 2 children with her. When he located her and took her to court, he was granted visitation rights, he said, a ruling he states she didn't comply with, so he struggled to see his children even that much. Do you see how she goes from saying, oh, fathers are portrayed as these innocent victims, to then literally describing an event where a man's children were taken from him? He had to locate her. He had to find his children. She literally kidnapped this man's 2 children. How is he not an innocent victim? How is that not recognized as very valid trauma? To have your children taken and you have no idea where they are? But oh, she's gonna say like, oh, well, he knows they're with the mom, so he should just assume they're safe. That's insane, because when we position it to you as, well, they're with the dad, so she should assume it's safe, you're like, never. That's crazy. Oh, but she can just take the kids, flee the state, and we're supposed to just deal with it, and we're supposed to just wait for her to decide when it would be best for him to see them. Like, even when the court demanded it, she wouldn't comply. Sociologist Kathleen Gerson, author of No Man's Land, Men's Changing Commitments to Family and Work, looks at the ways men and women's roles in society have changed over the past 30 years. She contends that large social shifts occurred, upending the old structures, and clear new paths have not been paved. For example, women's contributions to the labor force have become critical to our economy. As women took on more economic responsibilities, the father as sole breadwinner model eroded, Gerson says, and so men do not possess a predominant ideal or pattern of masculinity or fatherhood. What? I have to read that again. Men do not possess a predominant ideal or pattern of masculinity or fatherhood. Then who do they think invented masculinity and fatherhood? If not men and fathers. What? She identified 3 models of fathers, the first being the old-fashioned married man with wife at home. The second is the egalitarian man who values emotional involvement and his role as a nurturer with the children, even if a marriage breaks up. Thank you for acknowledging that those fathers actually exist, okay? But again, she acknowledges a lot of things that she just then forgets exist moments later. The third is the absent father, deadbeat, or runaway, who finds sustained involvement with his children inordinately difficult. Gerson explains that the extremes are most apt to take action. The promise keepers are highly committed and conservative men determined to back the clock and restore traditional fatherhood. The underbelly of these promise keepers is a rejection of the notion of women's equality. The fathers' rights movements are filled with men who feel pushed out, denied of ties to their children, leaving them estranged and angry. The underbelly of this is anger toward women. Okay, so I'm not going to deny that there is a certain subsection of fathers' rights movements where there are men who are pretty much like, if not over the line of actually hating women, like are at least like right up to it, where they're like, I pretty much hate women, but I almost don't, but I pretty much do. And it's just not okay when either gender does it. But I will tell you, the vast majority of men in fathers' rights groups immediately correct that behavior. Like, whenever we do see dads in the group who are like, it's bullcrap that I have to pay on a kid that I didn't even want, they get eviscerated in the comments. Dude, the real dads, the OG fathers, the real ones do not stand for it. She does not believe either extreme reflects most ordinary people's experiences. The vast majority of men are in the middle, part of dual earner families, whether married, otherwise partnered, or divorced, and they're working to earn money and redefine fatherhood in non-politicized fashion. They're simply living their lives. Gerson notes that the number of custodial fathers, though it remains small, has doubled over the past 10 years. Because these new patterns don't get politicized, they're often not defined as men's movements. A real fatherhood movement, like a real mother's movement, would question the structure of how our society balances work and family. We do. Why are none of the fathers' rights movements seen as real movements, but the mothers' movements are? When literally fathers' rights movements have always been fathers deserve equal custody, mothers' rights movements tend to be mothers deserve custody and the choice to give fathers custody. The fathers' rights movement far more acknowledges the new workplace structures between men and women, because the fathers' rights movement and equal custody acknowledges the fact that most households are dual income. It acknowledges that both parents are working. So why would you assume that either one of those parents was more available to be home and nurturing than the other? The idea that now both parents are going to be contributing to childcare and both parents are going to be running their own homes is far more progressive and realistic than this 1950s idea that women can just stay home all day. Or both parents are working, one parent is the only one paying, and one parent is the only one receiving. Even though if they're both working, it's not like the kid is realistically seeing the custodial parent more. I did not anticipate to spend so much time on just this first page, so this might be a multi-part series in the end, but I have to get through it. I have to keep reading. It's like a train wreck. I can't look away. It's just like one of the most hypocritical articles I've ever read in my life, and I need more. I need more. So, In the next part, we will jump on to page 2. The problem with presumptive joint custody. Are you ready to be angry with me? Let's do it!